Welcome back to the podium. Today we're going to cover my new light build for Season 2, and this one really is out of the bounds of what light normally does, but it will help you qualify more. Now, me and you both know that light has been given a bad name. People think that we're trolling when, we choose this contestant, but I promise you, if you focus the objectives, the eliminations that you crave will come. Now, remember that solo queuing will literally half your odds of success. Embark are really kind of tackling this area to kind of encourage you to play in a team scenario more, but if you're like me, sometimes we just enjoy solo playing. My guide is obviously compatible with all weapons, so even you melee players are out there can also use this guide. But first of all, we have to think about the problem that it is that we have to face. Well, obviously, as a light player, we have very low health, and we need to rely on our teammates to actually control or support the objective. So basically, we need to, as lights, be able to get in, deal damage, and get out. But obviously, when you might be queued with teammates who kind of don't have that knowledge, or they just don't do that, especially in solo queue, dealing, bursts of damage for us light players just won't really cut it, right? We have to worry about shields, we have to worry about heals, revives, defibs, and all that stuff. So I've basically been spending some time kind of working on how we can fix this solution. And I do actually think that my Season 1 solo guide is still pretty strong to date. And when I do make a guide, I do try and kind of future-proof it as much as I can. But for Season 2, I do actually now have some adjustments. So we're going to need utility that will be able to basically help us maintain some control as well. Because personally, I do think that it's kind of the weakest aspect of players overall in the finals. If you're playing, with a team, or, maybe you're just duoing with a friend, then obviously you can adjust the gadgets, which I'll mention later on. But you're going to essentially become the carry god while secretly having some control of the objectives too, obviously limited by light's gadgets. Starting off with the specialization, I actually prefer to use the dash this season because it can actually help you escape certain situations, move around the map faster, and also confuse your opponents when you're taking 1v1 fights. You've also noticed as well that players are starting to use more of the ignite grenade, more of the gas grenade as well, and obviously if you're invis, that can obviously just completely take it out, so being able to dash out of those situations is way more helpful this season. Obviously this pairs well if you're a sword player or melee player, the dash is probably a bit more obvious to you, and we will combine this with a bit more gadgets later on as well. The first actual gadget is, I guess, more of like a flex slot depending on like who you're queued with. I mainly use the vanishing grenade if I'm playing solo, so we don't miss out on obviously that strong aspect if I'm going to take control and move across the map. But I do actually prefer to opt to use the glitch grenade if I'm playing in a duo or team, because obviously the strength of being able to instantly take out some shields, for example, is just way too strong to, not have that. So we're going to combine these gadgets with the second slot, which is of course the gateway grenade. Of course, it's a new thing that's been added into Season 2, and there's a few tech ideas that I've actually seen other people talk about, and I've actually tested myself, and I do approve of it. Finally, of course, the stun gun is basically an essential for light. The ability to basically be able to stop a cash out from being stolen is just so useful, especially when utility is in the way of that. Okay, so what are we going to do with these gadgets? First of all, for the early game, your objective is to essentially take the vault to the cash out as fast as you can. That's pretty obvious. If you're playing at a lower rank, then you can set up the gateway to basically be automatically teleported towards you, but I do feel that it kind of leaves your team quite exposed alone if you don't communicate that information. So what I like to do instead, even if we're at the higher ranks, is actually start off by setting up the first gateway towards the cash out, then go towards the vault, and once the vault is around like 50% or so, place your second gateway down in like a hidden place where opponents shouldn't really see it, then use your vanishing grenade to essentially run in, yoink that vault, and then bring it towards the teleporter. Be aware though that obviously the gateway has a range of about 70 meters, so try to place the gateway as close as you can to this range just to basically maximize that efficiency. If this plan doesn't work out because, this is the finals at the end of the day, then just simply allow the other team to take the vault towards the cash out and regroup with your team for the offense. What I see too much of right now is once the team has taken the vault, and let's say you lose that initial fight, you delay the team by bringing it into the cash out, which is just going to screw you over because on the other side of the map, for example, the other team might pace it very quickly and they'll be cashing out way faster than you. Okay, so the best case scenario, you took the teleporter, you've deposited it into the vault. How do we defend as a light player? Well, it's obviously first of all important to note that you should not be taking overly aggressive fights, but at the same time you should obviously support your team in defending. Remember our problem at the start of the video? Well, obviously now we have to basically rely on our team to support and control. Light does have the ability to kind of, produce a lot of setups when you're in a team. But obviously this is kind of more closer match to that solo guide or duo guide. our focus is essentially going to be on that like kind of last chance insurance to basically stop attackers from stealing the cash out. Something that I've seen other people do and tested myself is actually setting up the first gateway near the cash out you're defending. If it's in the open, I actually prefer placing it above in the sky because a lot of people kind of miss out on that. Then you're going to essentially fight from a safe place to basically support your team, where then obviously, for example, you can use dash to escape. Maybe even you could take some weird angles or hold from weird places and distract the opponents. However, it's important that you do not take extended fights and you keep your health at least above 50% as you need it later for our next steps. If you notice that you're pulling opponents away from the cash out, for example, towards you, then you're actually doing a great job. Just continue to back off and escape if you're under pressure and go to regenerate your health. Once you start to see opponents stealing the cash out, that's when you can place down the second gateway, use the vanishing grenade, and then enter it with your stun gun ready to go. Essentially, your goal here is to identify the player that's stealing the cash out, hit them with that stun gun, and then escape. In some scenarios, you'll basically be able to re-enter the gateway again, and then basically take a 1v1 fight if for some reason the opponent decides to enter it too. You can use the gateway to essentially go in and out of that state, basically frustrating players, and you could also combine it with your dash when needed to basically survive for as long as possible. Of course, this scenario does get pretty wild, but it's actually really fun. Just make sure, again, you're kind of like aware of the cash out when the second attempt after you've done the stun gun is being stolen, in which you may have to basically commit your life to stopping. Hopefully during this whole time, your team is actually, dealing some form of damage or doing something rather than just standing out in the open, which again, you can kind of use this movement of the gateway to kind of go in and out, tricking your opponents. Okay, so let's say you struggle taking the first defense. Maybe your team got coined, for example. What I see players not doing much is actually using the free camera to identify potential spots for your next attack. For example, if I don't get third party and I just get simply wiped by a singular team, there might actually be a cash out which is on like 50% and it could be contested in a 3v3 fight, for example. And I actually prefer to target those cash outs to go to next because firstly, for those players, and we've had it before, third parties are annoying, right? But being able to attack as a 3 when there's something like, like a 2v1 fight is a really nice scenario for an easy steal. This is just simply because it's highly likely that the players fighting for this cash out have burned through a lot of their gadgets and then obviously could also be quite low on their health. For roughly the middle stage of the game, you're going to essentially repeat what you did at the start. Again, take the gateway, set it up, teleport with the vault. If you're unsuccessful with that, again, just regroup or wait for the respawn and then prepare to attack. For the attacking side of things, I actually like to have the gateway sort of a mix between the cash out and a safety point. Again, you can use the gateway to hop in, deal damage, and then hop out. But just remember that, again, opponents can obviously enter this teleport as well. But I would say it's not the smartest option if they did, because they're basically leaving the actual cash out site, right? If you do have comms, then essentially you can place the vanishing grenade on your whole team as well, initiate a fight to then catch the other players off guard and then exit. Now remember that you also have the stun gun, and I'm a heavy main and I've noticed that a lot of the time I see lights kind of using the stun gun on me way too close to fights. If you see a heavy around, let's say 10 meters away, it's a good option to obviously initiate on it, as the hip fire for that range is obviously quite wide. But I've noticed that when you guys kind of stun me, I'm still able to kind of take that fight unless you extend that range back a little bit more. Now, obviously, you can rinse and repeat the strategies that we've mentioned here for attacking and defending. You will need to really learn how these gadgets can be utilized, and honestly, on top of that, solo queue is really difficult in this game. Really try to kind of take solo queuing in this game as a training ground style experience. For when you might eventually find a team to queue up with, because then you can kind of bring this knowledge that you've gained into a team and build up strategies from there on. You will be frustrated, but that's just the the experience, the roadmap of learning. Some of you might even be here because you believe in the competitive future of the game, or maybe you just want the diamond skins added to your collection. Either way, unless you don't mind that kind of extended grind over, I do think that you would need to find a group of players. It's just way more efficient and it's quicker. Maybe some people in the comments, guys, if you watch my videos, just mention that you're looking for a team, so you guys, my subs, can go out there and make our community proud, right? But overall, if you enjoy this guide, I would appreciate a like. Maybe you basically have anything else that you want me to explain in further detail as well. I could make a video going a little bit more in depth with certain things. But thank you guys again so much for watching. You guys have been awesome. My name has been Thix, and as always, I'll see you on the podium.